Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Marketing with me, your host Denise Fay, and Mr. Shane Cowley. Hello, Shane.
Hey, Denise.
Oh my goodness me, this is definitely a podcast with a difference. So we've been talking about this kind of things for a while now, and Shane said, why don't we just do it? Why don't we do a Room 101 for marketing? And I thought, that sounds like a great idea. What is it?
Well, let's see how we get on. So it's a good chance for us to take all those little irritations and chuck them into marketing hell, or into the furnace, or whatever Room 101 is.
Super. So Room 101, for the concept, in case anybody out there is a bit like me that didn't know what Room 101 was all about, is that when you kind of come up with an idea and you go, you know what, we're going to argue the point and then decide whether we're going to chuck it away and never, ever, 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 ever talk about it again. That'd be correct.
Yeah, well, we'll see how we get on with that, but not sure how we get on with the arguing, because I tend to be quite agreeable, so we'll see how we get on.
All right then, Shane, over to you. You have a few points in mind what you think we would like to actually throw into the marketing fire and never, ever, ever, ever talk about again.
Let me look down at a few of my notes. Okay, so listen, I think actually the very first thing I guess I'd have to throw in there into Room 101 has to be no guaranteed results. You know, if we could guarantee results, wouldn't marketing be so different? So I'm lobbing a little grenade at you, a little bombshell that we hadn't pre-discussed or pre-planned.
Yes, so, indeed. Shane has actually started to give me one of those, hand grenades. And I don't know if you've listened to episode 25 with the features and benefits. I suggest that you do, as I slightly digress. But there was one or two of those grenades that Shane lobbed over at me, going, But okay, so that's my mind digressing. Tell me more about the no guaranteed results.
I think actually when we were talking about doing this before, and I was kind of thinking about the things that really are the bugbears of marketing, I actually had to kind of take a step back, and actually when you go back to it, really the reality is you have to work for results in marketing, and you have to keep tweaking, and you have to keep testing and measuring and tweaking, and eventually you massage the conditions into the right results, and you get the results from trial and error and testing and reviewing. So, I think just a little easy way to start will be just thinking, wouldn't it be so nice actually if you could actually just predict your results accurately, and when you're doing an online, like a social ad, Facebook or Google, you get the estimations of the amount of conversions you can expect, and wouldn't it be just brilliant if actually they all just worked out exactly as predicted? So I think whenever I talk to people who are doing their own marketing, particularly like business owners, usually their big gripe usually is the fact that if they have someone in their marketing team, they get annoyed at the fact that the results are never exactly as expected or predicted. But take for an email, for example, you send out an email with a call to action on it. You can never really 100% predict. You can estimate what kind of click-through rates you'll get, or what kind of conversion rates you'll get from averaging your performance over time. But I'm just being a little bit of an idealist, Denise. I'm just thinking, wouldn't it be so nice if you could actually just have a magic wand and say, yes, we can predict X amount of leads, X amount of sales, X amount of for X amount of money precisely, with no work having to be done. That's essentially where it's coming from.
Yeah, and I hear you on that one, but I'm going to take you back a few points actually, because Shane had talked about there is a few golden rules of marketing that I actually agree with 100%, which is why I suppose we get on so well. So maybe we're so agreeable, but one or two, I'm going to pick you up on one or two things. I think where a lot of people kind of fall down in marketing is like they put something out like that email campaign or a Facebook ad or any kind of ad, and they say they don't get the results that they want. And then they say it doesn't work. But I think the key message for that kind of stuff, for proven results, is consistent. You have to be consistent and going out there in marketing. And then I agree that the testing and measuring piece, you're never going to get it right the first time. And that's the thing, so you might say, oh, it never worked. That doesn't work for us because we tried it once and it doesn't work, but you're never going to get what the results. It's rare that you'll get the results that you want in the first time that you send out a campaign. It's only to what you said, Shane, is testing and tweaking and tweaking and testing that you actually finally get round to finding a formula or a proven framework that actually works for you and your audience. And again, I take your point there too, Shane. Like the third element I talk about is like, like people's behavior cannot be predicted. And so while you may actually have like your tested system down to like a T, but then something happens to the world, like a pandemic or something like that, or Christmas or anything like that, and then customer behavior and human behavior changes. So that's why it's important to actually test and measure all the time and not stick with an idea of what will actually really happen.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm so agreeable or so disagreeable with myself. I actually think, I've come around. The reason why I wouldn't actually put no guaranteed results into the furnace, maybe if I was a business owner, under pressure to get a result in a certain time period and all that, yeah, you could say it would be brilliant if you're going to like, a member of your team or to an outsourcer, you'd love to be able to guarantee results. But from a marketing point of view and from a marketeer's point of view, I think the fact that actually that's what makes marketing so much fun as well. The fact that results aren't guaranteed and you do have to work at it, and you have to have, you have to analyze and you have to review, you have to spot the areas to improve and to work on, and then to get the results, and then it all comes together once you work out that formula. So I wouldn't put no results guaranteed into the Room 101 furnace when I think about it, because then that loses the joy of marketing, really. So
yeah, and actually, but I think but what you could put into the furnace is that no guaranteed results first time out, because it's so hard to predict anything because of human behavior, because it might be the first time that you've done something. So even though you might actually have the estimations and you might have your mate down the road going, oh my God, I did like, a Facebook ad and I got 25 leads in, or you might have somebody in a networking group going, yeah, I made 5 calls every day. And actually, I get business out of the 5 calls every day. But just because it works for them doesn't mean to say that it works for you. And we're constantly saying that, Shane, no size fits all in terms of marketing. So it is important that you, as a business owner, find what works for you. Then the results will be guaranteed, once it's done consistently and once it's done regularly, and once you've done it through a system, like, because we always say that we'll help people create a marketing machine that's unique to their business. And I think that's when it works. So maybe what we could throw into the marketing fire would be no guaranteed results on the first time out. It's too difficult to estimate that you need to. So if somebody's got a budget to spend, which they should do anyway, right? But if they've got a budget, then they allocate only a certain point to the first time out, and then consistently doing it a bit more month on month, week on week, year on year, etc., etc. What do you reckon?
I'll have that. Yeah, why not? Go for it. Chuck it in.
Chuck it in. No guaranteed results the first time out.
Yes, but not ongoing, because that's where we need to apply that bit of knowledge and work at it to get the results. So great.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's what you do all the time, day in, like for our clients. You work on those things to get them tested, measuring, and you make small little tweaks, one little tweak at a time. So you do all that kind of stuff. So
I think that's part of, and I think that's like, that's a part of the whole marketing process that I'd find very enjoyable, is that more investigative piece where you're playing detective and you're looking for the weak links in the chain to strengthen them to get the better results. So so no, I wouldn't want to do away with that totally. So
great.
Right, over to you. Next one.
Okay, my one. I've said this a million times, and I will say it a million times again, probably until the day I die, is that people tell me all the time that nobody reads anymore. And
But hey, Denise, no one does read anymore. They want everything visual. We want pictures. We want big pictures and buttons. We don't want words that have to read. I won't read a big email you send to me because there's too many words in it.
Sure you will, because it's lovely engaging.
You know what? Before, like, if we had this conversation maybe two weeks ago, I think I would have been saying, no, I'm a visual person. I like things visually. I don't like big blocks of text. So I would be chucking that one. I'd be I'd be keeping that one out because I would kind of have felt a little bit there's truth in that to some degree. But yeah, I remember just when we were having that chat the other week about emails and stuff and about images, and when I actually decided, let's go look for some evidence. Like the best marketing is done with evidence and evidence-based decisions. So I said, right, Shane, get your little detective hat on, go look for the evidence. And I was amazed when I read stat after stat that showed less images and long form text emails actually have better conversions in sales. And that blew me away because I'd worked in, digital marketing for a number of years where you're kind of working off a bit of there's a kind of an increasing trend that, okay, make things, people have short attention spans, make things, bite size and glanceable. But when you dig into it, actually, that is not necessarily the case. So back to you on that one.
No, and that was a lot of fun when we actually looked at the when I sent an email. So just kind of backtrack a little bit. I sent this email. Shane said, "What do you reckon of this one?" And Shane's like, "I don't know. I think it might be a bit too wordy. Hence, is actually need to investigate and send it on." But here's the thing, though. There are times where we do need the glanceability. There's small amount of text. But if you're looking to sell something, long form text is important, because here is a really harsh truth. People read when they're interested. People don't read when they're not interested. And so that's what we kind of sometimes as business owners, we kind of forget that it's like people don't read anymore. Well, when was the last time that you read something? Because I'm pretty sure there's something that you read, even you, Shane, that you read something recently and you kept going because somebody hooked you in, and then actually whatever it was saying, you're agreeing with it. You were going, that's right. Well, obviously that's agreeing, but you were hooked into it and you're invested in finishing it to the end. I mean, if you look at it, books are still being read, magazines are still being read, articles in magazines are still being read. So people still read. And the harsh truth really is that people won't read stuff that's not of interest to them. And so if you turn it on its head, what you need to do is actually have captivating headlines, engaging content, flow words, making sure that your words that you're writing has both an art and a science. So it's got the visuals in it for sure, because visuals are great, but it's the words. So what's that saying I heard a long time ago? Pictures tell, but words sell. And so if you're looking to sell something, you really need to have the words in it. So I am people, nobody reads anymore. That is one that's just so not true.
I actually think that's kind of it's kind of a good reminder actually of the importance to always get your own, don't take anyone else's kind of presumption and just apply it yourself without actually testing it yourself. Because if you were just to accept that general trend, if you look at the world of even podcasting, you're a lot of TV networks and people like that would tell you that the audience's attention span is getting shorter and shorter. We've got the attention span of a goldfish now, but then you've got long form podcasts are the most listened to content now. So you've got billions of people listening to 3-hour conversations on specialist topics, but yet we're being told people in general now have got shorter attention spans. They're not listening to that. But when you give people the information, they will, if it's relevant to them, they will keep consuming it. So I think it's important not to buy into that whole general myth or presumption that we don't have any longer than a couple of seconds attention anymore, when actually there's lots of evidence that we actually do. It just has to be, the content has to be right for you.
Yeah, and that's one of the things actually I know, and I think we talked about it before in a previous episode, and I think we should probably bring it in and talk about it. Remember we talked about the idea of blogs when we talked about your SEO podcast a couple of episodes ago. People still read, and people are still major consumers of information. And so if they're not consuming your content, then they're consuming somebody else's. And so to say that, it's all just social media and you don't need a website and it's all videos, and yeah, videos are important these days, but videos are only the hook. And what makes me laugh is that videos still have, engaging videos still have script, they still have words. So, okay, so maybe it's not people aren't reading anymore, but people are listening. So they're still listening. And it's the same idea, captivating headline, some kind of engage in content that people agree with. There's a problem, there's a solution, there's something that engages with people. So words are so important. And I think that when people say that nobody reads anymore, do you know what? If you get nothing from the Room 101, if somebody says that to you, like, people don't read anymore, I would run a million miles away, because they just haven't done the research.
Yeah, I think on that, I would happily pull the lever and send that presumption into Room 101, because I think presume at your own peril. That you gotta test things out for yourself. And
yeah.
So Denise, you have that one. Your words and your copy are very much staying in the world, and those who think that nobody reads anymore is going in. Actually, when we were saying that, the thought did come to me last week. Suddenly I realized, there was a point we made that there is a kind of almost a presumption that we need to dumb down everything now for people. Everything's getting dumbed down. We don't have the attention span. I mean, think about it. What's happening in the world of even email marketing, with the whole idea of just remove words and put in lots of text and lots of pictures. It's like turning fairly specialized content into almost like preschool books. Make the pictures nice and big and make the words nice and small, and don't presume your audience can't consume.
Yeah, and look, I know, like, there is a readings, like, the Fleischmann, I think it's the Fleischmann reading scale, where they have, like, they measure the amount of long words and words with lots of syllables in it. And, if you look at say the Harvard Business Review, that would be high on the scale. If you look at, and the Economist, they would be high on the scale. And then if you look at other stuff, so it is actually, it's a recommendation that they will bring it down. But like, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
Simply because what you need to do is, I suppose, is get people engaged, but then don't, as you said, assume that people can't handle a lot of the stuff. Like, here comes the science piece, that L'Oreal lad, that people can understand stuff. You just have to make people understand what it is that you want them. You have to help people understand stuff.
Yeah,
is really what it is.
Okay, I think we can move on from that one now, because you've really sold that one very well. So don't have to
Thank you
sell
very
it
much,
anymore.
Shane. Thank you very much.
See,
whoop, whoop.
Words sell, huh?
Words do sell, I'm telling you. Anyway, so moving on. What's give me another one. Give me another one there, Shane.
Right, another one. I've got a list of about 10 here, but I'm going to have a quick look. Yeah. Okay, so a little bugbear of mine, especially in the world of marketing, but also something I think stops you from being as effective when you're communicating. I heard an ad on the radio yesterday for a parenting book by a psychologist, and the book's title or subtitle of the book was "It's Connection, Not Perfection." I think that is something that's been lost a little bit now because of a lot of use of buzzwords and jargon and kind of meaningless, kind of passive words that don't really connect with an audience. So I'm a guilty pleasure fan of buzzwords, jargon, and corporate speak from a guilty pleasure point of view, for having a bit of a laugh. But I think a lot of people kind of, they see what maybe is happening at a larger brand, big corporation level, and they start applying that into their own level of their communications, almost, and they're trying to be like one of the big boys. But then it leaves them kind of sounding a bit flat and a bit inauthentic and not really making any connection. So, whilst the buzzwords and the jargon and all that, I don't think it does anyone any favors to get sucked into talking in kind of meaningless words or shorthand that's maybe industry speak when you're talking to maybe people outside of an industry. But I guess the biggest issue with that would be the fact that it kind of just comes across as inauthentic. It's not being yourself, not speaking like yourself. And I think that's the key thing, really, is to, in your output and in your content, in your social media posts, in any emails, is finding your own voice, or having your own voice and being confident in it, and don't feel the need to actually try to replicate somebody else. So I think if I was to wrap that up, I would say inauthenticity, or kind of generic kind of language, trance language, I heard it described as before by Nikki Pattinson. She was a great speaker on sales and customer service, and as she would always point out, like, when you speak in kind of cliches people just kind of their eyes glaze over. So when you speak in kind of real language and visually and descriptive, it engages people. So that's my long-winded way of saying I'd put in kind of jargon and buzzwords and kind of cliched speak into Room 101.
Now, you know what, Shane, I'm wondering why you want to put that one in, because I know how much you love playing a little bit of buzzword bingo now on a Friday night.
I do love it. Oh, the best we ever come up with. Oh, in one of my past jobs and working in the corporate sector, myself and a colleague had great fun making up buzzwords from a buzzword generator. But then we actually started hearing some of the terms getting used in meetings, like ideas shower. That was my favorite one. Let's take an ideas shower, and we heard someone use something very, very similar to that, and our jaws dropped, and it was one of those moments in a meeting where you're trying to contain yourself. So and it's amazing because with that kind of stuff, or drinking from the fire hose, you know, when you start hearing that kind of thing, like one person hears it and then just thinks, oh, that's a thing. Let's
yeah, that sounds so good. Actually, let's actually impress the boss above. Yeah, look, you don't really have to convince me too much on this one, because sure, I bang the drum all the time, but particularly when it comes to marketing message, that you have to own your own message, because once you own your own message,
yeah,
then life becomes so much easier. And you know what? It's one of those things, and I'm going to share something. I'm going to share something really not vulnerable, but I remember when I first started out in marketing, I would teach Michael Porter and like his marketing book, The Essentials of Marketing or something, was fantastic. But it is all full of like marketing jargon words. And so then when I first started, I was like, I don't really use those words. I understand those principles. I understand marketing principles. I love marketing, but I don't need to speak in those terms or those words. And for a little while, I kind of thought, oh my God, maybe I should, because people will see me differently, if I stand up on stage and I talk about, all the buzzword and the jargon. So at the beginning, I would include them, but then after a while, it's like, you know what, because marketing now, so that was back then. So thankfully I've changed, because I'm still no marketing, but now it's like, I know the principles. I know how I speak. I kind of translate them somewhere in my poor Denise's brain, and actually then comes out with the stuff that we talk about, different, because we try to simplify stuff. Because if the reality is what you said, if you come across and you're saying those words that the boss might say, or somebody that you look up to, saying it's not your words, it will never 100% be you, that you can't actually say the same word again without actually kind of going, what was that really good word that I said before? So 100% agree. Like, I love connecting with people as one of my drivers, and it definitely has to come with the person that I am and the words that I use. And if it goes to the point, Shane, we talk about all the time, you attract the right people and you repel the wrong people. So if you use the right words, you're going to attract the right people. If you use the wrong words, you're going to attract the wrong people, and you'll have a load of tire kickers in your business. So I am 100% kicking that one into the marketing fire. Boom, boom.
Yeah, that's great, Denise. Yeah, 100% agree with you there on what you're saying as well about that. I guess having the confidence to kind of know that you don't have to use technical language to sound like you know what you're talking about. So I guess it takes confidence actually I think all that kind of technical language and very much kind of industry language can very much be almost a crutch to lean on if you're not the most confident in yourself. You want to sell yourself as the expert, and you don't need to, because I guess being authentic, being yourself, that's what people will connect with. And I think that the key is to connect and to engage.
Yeah, and Shane, actually on that one, like, I suppose actually I'm kind of thinking about it, because there is time, like, I suppose I was in the corporate world, you're in the corporate world. We work with we work with business owners at the moment, so we're not in corporate land really as much. And so I suppose to caveat what we're saying, is that sometimes there are people who are 100% confident and are using those words, which is completely fine, because then that's again part of their persona, and then that's their authentic self. So even if they're using those words in an everyday situation, as long as they're 100% behind it and they don't have to kind of stop and go, what was that word now that sounded really good last week in a meeting? So I think there is actually times where some of the jargon words just fit people, and they would never use, say, colloquialisms, or they would never use anything else. But I suppose it comes a balance, whatever. And to take that point, what you said, that's a really, 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 really good point, is as long as you're 100% authentic in your communications and your connections, that's what really matters.
Yeah, and listen, it can be impressive to string a sentence together with nothing but TLAs.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling here. I'm trying to like come up with examples of TLAs, and I'm like,
I
yeah.
know. So the old 3-letter acronym, like I actually remember the first time I heard about the TLA. That story about the guy who thought it was a role when he heard about TLA. And I took me a while to figure out what is a TLA. So I got the joke eventually.
I know, yeah. But yeah, those 3-letter acronyms. I know one. I can tell you one: call to action. Boom, boom. There you go.
There you go. CTA, CTR.
Of course, the click through rate. Yeah, all those ones.
Oh,
okay,
they all
so
start
now
flooding in when you start thinking of them, they all start coming in there. So yeah, we'll not go into them anymore because we'll just be having that kind of inside shorthand speak.
You know what, Shane? I think that I love this Room 101 idea. I think we should definitely bring this back again. So let's see what the listeners say. So actually, speaking of 3-letter acronyms and call to actions, why don't you, if you're interested in hearing any more or any bugbears that you actually have yourself, we are always looking for bugbears that you actually have in marketing. So please feel free to share them with us. And when it comes to sharing stuff, we've actually reignited our Facebook group, the Achieve Marketing, Let's Talk Marketing Facebook group. So just go find us. And then of course, just hello@achievemarketing.ie. And we are on all kind of social channels. So Shane, no guaranteed results the first time out in the fire? Yes or no?
You know what? I don't think so. I think I'm pulling that one back because I think, you know what, that's all part of marketing, and it would be all very boring if you could guarantee results every time. So let's just keep that one out.
Okay, great. And then the second one was nobody reads anymore in the fire.
100%.
100%.
Pour the petrol on top of it and chuck it in.
Wish I could do sound effects. And then the third one, being an inauthentic communicator.
Yeah, I think 100%. Like, I think authenticity is essential these days, especially to make that connection with people and to build meaningful relationships. So
yeah,
absolutely get it in there.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree with that one. Well, listen, I've enjoyed this one. I think it's been a blast. Shane, I think you've enjoyed it too.
Yeah, I have a few more on the old list here, so I think we'll have to do this again and talk through some of the other little gripes and grumbles from marketing.
Absolutely. And actually, again, I'm going to put a CTA out there. But really, it just means if you are listening and you have a bugbear, please get in touch with us. Achieve Marketing on all our social channels. We do want you to join the conversation because we want to have a chat about it. And hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Good.
All right, take care. Thanks, Shane. Bye.